Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We continue discussing the purpose of the Zimbabwe Communist Party, ZCP. In previous videos, we've discussed the following. 1. The purpose of the Zimbabwe Communist Party is to build in Zimbabwe a Marxist-Leninist vanguard party of the working class and peasantry, and to lead these two classes together with the stratum of revolutionary intellectuals to capture state power and to build a national democratic economy in Zimbabwe as a transitional stage towards the building of socialism and communism. We did explain point number 1. If you might have missed this, the video is available here on Facebook and also in my YouTube channel. Number 2, we said, as revolutionary nationalists, we understand the importance of national unity, regardless of ethnic origin, but mindful of the diversity of the Zimbabwean people. Revolutionary nationalism linked to devolution of power creates an ideological balance and a driving force for building the national economy and for uniting the country against either economic or military aggression. Again, we did explain this point. Then the third point which we discussed was, as Pan-Africanists, we see ourselves as part of the movement which will bring economic liberation to the whole of Africa. As communists, we see that liberation in class terms is centered around the interests of the working class and peasantry. Again, this point was explained in a video which we recorded here. The last point that we discussed was, as proletarian internationalists, we see ourselves as the Zimbabwean contingent of the world movement fighting for the global revolutionary transition from capitalism at its imperialist stage to socialism. So these points we've explained. Tonight we are discussing this point, which we are going to do a breakdown as we did with the 4 points above. The ZCP will pursue its goals by means of educating, organizing, and mobilizing the working class, peasants, and all progressive sections of society in support of our party and its objectives of advancing the national democratic revolution through the building of a production-driven national democratic economy. Let's try to then break this one down as well so that we give clarity. Ukuthi abantu bazwisise ukuthi nxa sisithi thina siyiZimbabwe Communist Party sichona. So nxa sithina the ZCP will pursue its goals by means of educating. The first thing that we must do, or that we are doing as a party, is that we provide political education. Without political education, we will not dismantle Zanuism. This t-shirt that I'm wearing, emuva, it is written, without the revolutionary theory, there's no revolution. Because in most cases, we simply shout the slogan, ZANU-PF must go. And in most cases, we do not explain why ZANU-PF must go. In the last 20 years or so, or 17 years, from 2000 to about 2017, the slogan was Mugabe must go, right? Then Mugabe went, but the situation remains the same. So we were united in the MDC ngokuthi let us remove Mugabe from power. It became the slogan. I'm not suggesting that the MDC did not have policies. It did have policies. Restart, there was a document, economic policy of the MDC called the Restart. There was also a document called the Restore. So there were policies, right? But the slogan was Mugabe must go, and Mugabe went, and nothing changed. So the perception out there was that because of lack of political education, we then personalized our struggle, that the nature of our struggle was against an individual called Robert Mugabe. Just as our struggle now is not against an individual called Emerson Mnangagwa. Our struggle is a class struggle, as we explained in the last video. And it's a struggle against imperialism. We explained this. And against the looting class, which is led by ZANU-PF. This is why we emphasize that we must dismantle ZANUism. So we are using, as we were discussing in what is to be done, if you remember the series that we did on what is to be done, that we will use social media like Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms, YouTube and others, to educate. And we go beyond social media platforms and create study groups in our communities, be at the workplace, be in our communities where people 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 will form a cell, so that it becomes easier to carry out political education. Because Thomas Sankara says, if you give an AK-47 to a soldier who's not ideologically clear, you are just as good as giving an AK-47 to a criminal. This is why, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we emphasize on building cadres who understand our ideology, which is scientific socialism. And of course, we say a cadre must have the ability to break down the theory to the level of the people that the cadre is engaging. So this is why we are saying, therefore, the ZCP will pursue its goals by means of educating. It is key. And then organizing. It's important that we organize ourselves. We know this is why we're now saying let's organize Zimbabwe. We have to study. My internet is playing games. Not everyone wants to study. This is why we've created the Zimbabwe Communist Party, which is the third tier membership. That people must, because people appreciate the work that we do, and that the supporters of the Zimbabwe Communist Party who want to work with us to dismantle ZANUism, but they might not have time to get into study groups. But we emphasize that even supporters, we need them to study the basics, to understand the nature of our struggle. So it is important, therefore, that we organize ourselves in rural communities, at the workplace, in the informal sector, in urban centers. And mobilizing, which is the third point, mobilizing the working class, peasants, and all progressive sections of society in support of our party. So our task is that we must mobilize workers. They join trade unions. Organize those that are active in the economy, whether they are cross-border traders, towards our party program. We organize abantu basemakhaya, rural people, around our party program, and all sections in our society. This is what the Zimbabwean Communist Party seeks to do. So the fourth point is that we are not just organizing or mobilizing. We are mobilizing society to achieve the objectives of the Zimbabwe Communist Party and completing our liberation. Because the key is that our liberation is incomplete. And we have explained this point, why we are saying our liberation is not complete. So it is important that if we are to complete the liberation of Zimbabwe, we must mobilize and organize. COSATU has a slogan that organize the unorganized. And we are saying, and its objectives of advancing the national democratic revolution, which is the same as completing the liberation of Zimbabwe, through the building of a production-driven national democratic economy. We have explained, we did a breakdown on what we mean by building a national democratic economy where everyone participates. The next point that we are discussing before we conclude as the objectives or the purpose of the Zimbabwe Communist Party is that the vanguard role of the party cannot be achieved through proclamation, but only through collective organization and individual hard work. Only through this means can the ZCP earn the recognition of the working class and the working people as a whole as their vanguard party. We are not a vanguard. We explain this point, what we mean by a vanguard. We are not a vanguard. We are building a vanguard of the working class and the peasant. But we are saying the vanguard role of the party cannot be achieved through proclamation. And George Slovo, the former General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, in his thesis taught us that you cannot proclaim or climb. You cannot climb on a mountain. Nangikhulele ezintabeni singamasekela ntaba thina. Angeke ugibele intaba and proclaim that you are a communist. The work that you do is the one that will tell society that you are a communist. And some people then fall in love with the Communist Party, not because they understand the theory, but because babona umsebenzi that communists are doing. A good example is the work that we do around documentation of Zimbabweans in South Africa. As the General Secretary of the party, I actually lead that as the chairman of the Zimbabwe community in South Africa. Because a communist must have the ability to work with the community in resolving community problems or community challenges. This is why we selected that as communists, some of us, we must work with the Zimbabwean workers who are in South Africa, ukuthi babe documented. And we are happy that we started this work even before the Zimbabwe Communist Party was in existence. We started way back before 2010 to ensure that migrant workers are documented. So there are many people that have benefited from the work that we do on documentation. Then they will say, Comrade Mapena, which party do you belong to? I say, I'm a member of the Zimbabwe Communist Party. And they say, okay, we don't care what people say about Zimbabwe Communist Party, but we want to be members of the party. Right. So this is what Comrade George Slovo taught us. That you don't climb on a hilltop and proclaim that you are a communist. You work in communities. This is why it is key that a cadre developed by a communist party must combine both the theory and the practical work. So that people will then say, okay, we want to be members of your party because of the work that you do in communities. It can be work around the cleaning of Harare, the streets of Harare, Bulawayo, Mtare. It can be work done in planting trees in communities. It is work done in terms of because we have the worst drought, right? Abantu abalima ngemakhaya. Communists must be in the forefront. Or the traditional way of farming is not productive because kasivuni. We are closing in few days' time. Most people are traveling, and as the tradition, people are going would be expected to go and do some farming to assist the families. But because of drought, they will not be able to do so. So it is our task as communists to come up with a new method of farming, which will then be going around in communities. And if people then begin to have a harvest through the new method, that will have impacted in communities. Then people will say, no, Tina, we want that party of those people that came back from Sogulim. Ababethi, no, communism yafela ngaphi ngabethi, no, we don't care. But we saw the practical work that they did. So this is the point that we are making when we say the vanguard role of the party cannot be achieved through proclamation, but only through collective organization and the individual work. Because a communist, if one says is a cadre, one must be a hard worker, one must be working in communities. It is not about shouting slogans that is ZANU-PF must go, but it's doing practical work in communities. And we then say, only through this means can the ZEP and the recognition of the working class and the people as a whole as their vanguard part. It is only through practical work, combining theory and practical work, that we can then earn recognition as the vanguard of the working class and peasantry, where people then begin to identify themselves with the Zimbabwe Communist Party. Please write your comments in the comment section. I see lots of comrades have joined, and I see comrades that have written comments. We will read those comments and then get back to you. Otherwise, Amandla comrades, thank you so much for joining.